Hello again, everybody. I am Adam, your co-host of the Poisoner's Almanac podcast.
And I'm Rebecca.
And I'm Camilla.
You got to say it louder.
And I'm Camilla. Very stressed right now.
Stress.
As usual.
You're 8. What do you have to
Very
be stressed
right now,
about?
she said.
You're on summer break.
I'm stressed of the tiredness.
No, you're tired. You're tired
You're just using
you're tired because you don't like to go to sleep at night, and I have to come in your room several times to tell you to get back in bed.
It's because I don't like going to sleep.
And at 12:30, 1 a.m., we hear...
Yeah, because she likes to run back and forth.
She runs back and forth in the hallway while her mother and her father are trying to sleep everyone.
Yes.
Mommy, stop making me embarrassed.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Okay.
Guys, do I sound like a virgin?
No.
You're 8. Why do you want to sound 13?
Well, you said I sound like 13 one time.
That was when you were being really sassy.
Yeah, I'm sassy like a 13-year-old, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Rebecca, my dear,
Yes.
how have you been?
Playing.
Shh, that's... You gotta chill out. You said you wanted to be in the intro, and now you gotta chill, okay? So, Rebecca, my dear, how have you been?
Good. Staying busy, but not really feeling like I get anything done.
Mm-hmm.
But that sounds about right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know where that was going. I was hoping something would come to me when I said I've been doing such and such, but
There was just nothing out there but the void.
No. Yes. What have we been doing? What happened last week?
You and Camilla went this morning to help lay down the new mats in the new Taekwondo location.
Yes, which is like close by, but it's a bigger location.
Mm-hmm.
But I think also Saturday we kind of socialized, and I was in bed for like 2 days.
Yes.
So there's that. I think my memory has come and gone. So
Yes, that's right. I had a long day. I drove a long way. And by the time dinner time rolled around, I was like, just DoorDash it. I don't care. I was worn out.
And then I didn't know what I wanted to eat, so I just didn't order anything for myself because I was like, I'll just won't eat.
Update. Have you eaten anything?
I did earlier.
What did you have?
I had some bread.
Okay.
And
the way you said that.
Snacked on some other things. Girl dinner.
So yeah, it was a long day, but here we are, ready for this new episode, which is exciting. What are we doing here, babe?
I'm doing something a little new, but it's not going to be like so new that it's not like anything we've done before or anything.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give you 3 cases, and I'm going to see if you can guess what poison was used in each of these 3 cases. They're real cases, and we have covered these poisons before.
Oh, baby.
And we're going to be going, this isn't going to be like the thing we do every time. I'm just kind of sticking this in.
Yeah, this is just an idea you had.
This is an every so often sort of deal.
Sure,
so.
I think it's great, though.
Yeah, so because next week I plan on covering some different poisons, because I have plenty that I want to cover still.
Of course. And this is a great way to incorporate so much of the true crime stuff that we just don't have space for.
Yeah, and also I am doing some research on things like the Borgias and also Catherine
Zeta-Jones
de Medici and her poison gloves. Lots of those kinds of things, because there's a lot of like myth/truth to a lot of those stories.
Listen,
so that's going to be coming up too.
Every week on the job, me and the boys, we're talking trash about Catherine Medici.
Gotcha. Perfect. Well, don't put on any gloves anytime soon.
I shan't.
Anyway, but yeah, I'm going to give you, I think I got like 3 cases in here because I wasn't sure. I literally just sort of wing it when it comes to the timing. I'm like, maybe this will be an hour. Now the animal ones always went over because like I kept coming up on different animals. I was like, well, I got to talk about that one. And there was quite a few that I left out. And even with like the episode on the not so friendly little trees, there are other trees I still want to look at. So we're going to be doing more trees in the future too.
Bonus episode.
So, are you ready to hear some cases?
Absolutely.
You ready to take your wildest guess? Do you remember the symptoms and things of some of the poisons we talked about?
Vaguely.
Vaguely. Shame on you. Okay. All right. Well, we're going to talk about a case from the 1850s. The 1850s? Let me check my notes. Well, it's a case in the 1880s, but this dude was born in 1852.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to call him George because I feel like for some people this is going to be kind of a more famous case if they know true crime. And even that might be giving some of it away.
Okay.
But in case you know it, I don't think you do know it, but in case you know it, that will give away some things. So I'm just going to call this dude George.
Okay.
He is, okay. So George was born in New York City on September 8th, 1852 to Reverend William Orme and his wife Julia. They moved to England and George ended up going to medical school there. So Dr. George, I suppose. He served as medical officer in the French Ambulance Corps during the Franco-Prussian War. If you don't know when that was, it was 1870 to 1871 between the French and the Prussians.
It was on the tip of my tongue.
Pretty sure. So, and he earned the French Legion of Honor, which is the highest honor of merit for France, at least at that time. I'm not sure if it still is.
How French?
Oui, oui. He also served in the Romanian army during the Russo-Turkish War.
What? Did he live there at that time?
Yeah. You know,
interesting.
I think he just sort of wanted to continue being a military sort of doctor.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure if he actually lived there at the time. And he would go on to win more awards during his military service. And I don't know the history of this particular war, but it could be too that like England was helping because if he was he was helping with the French in the first war. So wherever he was living, maybe they were allies to the Romanians at the time. I'm not sure.
Interesting.
I don't know a whole lot about
I wasn't thinking
about of the day. So
I wasn't thinking about allies, allied countries. Okay.
So now after his time in these wars, he became a general practitioner on the English coast. Now he had, however, become addicted to morphine by this time.
Whoops.
We've talked about morphine a little bit.
We have.
That's one poison we have talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Poison / painkiller / drug / whatever.
/ good time.
And if you remember, morphine is a derivative of
morphonium.
Opium.
Sorry.
And
if that's the first pop quiz, it is not heading in the right direction. What did I say? Morphonium?
When used properly is very helpful for pain.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes. It is a helpful drug, but can become a poison if used incorrectly.
Yeah.
Having had access to it quite a bit at war, because, a lot of people were receiving morphine for pain when they were dealing with injuries and such, and I'm sure there were some pretty rough injuries. Now, while working as a general practitioner, he also received a commission as a medical officer at the Bournemouth Artillery Volunteers. Bournemouth.
Mm-hmm.
Bournemouth. Bournemouth.
Boony mouth.
Bournemouth. Sorry, y'all.
Like I burned my mouth on them grits.
You think I would know better, because we've done so many of these by now?
There's so many strange words.
Bournemouth. Artillery volunteers. Like the Tennessee Volunteers.
With some gravy and a biscuit.
No. Now, morphine was readily dispensed and easily acquired at Bournemouth.
Ooh.
So he was a happy fellow.
Rolled off the tongue.
Well, happy, sort of.
Uh-huh.
Now, he also got married to Kate John. She was one of 5 children. One sibling was already dead. So, not going to talk about that one. And when her parents died, she and her other 4 siblings, 1 sister and 2 brothers, received an inheritance payable once they either came of age or married. I want to say coming of age at that point was like 20, 21, something like that.
Oh, is that right?
I think so.
Okay.
I could be totally wrong. I never lived over there. But, I don't know. Anyway, I think that's the case. So, at this time, Kate's inheritance would go straight to her husband. George, which is lame.
I was about to say, well,
Yeah.
that was the legal pathway back then.
This was before,
Wow.
like,
It reminds me of Sense and Sensibility.
yeah.
Because the estate goes from father to son, not father to daughter. It is the law.
Oh, God. Basically. It's not my atlas anymore. It's their atlas. He spent it all rather quickly, likely because of his addiction. So he got her inheritance and basically just blew it.
Yikes.
Now, one of Kate's brothers died about a year after their marriage, and Kate was left with a little more inheritance, which was also spent by her husband. I mean, geez, George. After a while, the pair had a daughter, and unfortunately, George's medical practice wasn't doing so hot. He had a lot of debts, again, likely due to his addiction.
Mm-hmm.
His checks were no longer any good, and his house had to be sold, as did many of his other belongings. Now, we're talking about, like, Mr. War Hero, like, doctor, prestigious dude, and it's all falling apart.
It's terrible.
Now, after, I literally just said that. One of Kate's brothers, Percy, had this curvature of his spine. I'm not sure what his actual, like, diagnosis was, if there was anything more to that. But yeah.
Okay.
So he couldn't walk. He would get around via wheelchair, and he actually went to school because he was otherwise healthy. He went to school at Wimbledon, where the other students and the headmaster.
Where the coffee beans come from.
What?
That's its sensibility also.
Is it Wimbledon?
Precisely. And then Wimbledon, precisely, where the coffee beans come from.
Is it?
You don't remember that part?
Oh, I thought it was somewhere else, but okay.
It's one of Hugh Grant's best jokes in the movie.
With a coffee bean.
They're trying to coax.
Yeah. I know the scene. I thought it was somewhere.
Coffee beans come.
For some reason, when I think coffee beans, I think South America. So.
Well, of course. That's why it's absurd to say that coffee beans come from Wimbledon.
Well, they also said the Nile was like the
Vladivostok.
Anyway, now I really want to watch Sense and Sensibility. Right. So, I'm used to doing notes on paper, by the way.
Right.
And I'm doing it on my iPad right now. And so this is kind of hard for me. Okay, here we go. He was healthy otherwise, like I said. And he had not collected his inheritance yet because he had not married or come of age yet. He was about 2 years away.
Oh, Lord. What's about to happen? Now,
George, he decided to pay Percy a visit in December of 1881, December 3rd, at school. And he and the school's headmaster, Mr. Bedbrook, sat with him. Apparently, Percy and Mr. Bedbrook commented at how thin and pale George was. George is, he's kind of on the edge at this point. He's lost his house. He's losing money. He's addicted. But they don't know that he has this addiction. But they comment on how thin and pale he is. Mr. Bedbrook called for some sherry because George wanted some sherry. You know what sherry is? It's like
a drink.
Alcoholic wine. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of wine. Now, George also asked for sugar to add to it. So that was brought as well. And, Mr. Bedbrook was like, okay, weird. But, you do you. Now, before long, George had them try some Dundee cake, which is like a spicy Scottish fruit cake that he just happened to have in his, like, case that he brought with him. Just brought some cake.
What is going on? I'm so scared.
And he sliced it himself right there with like a penknife, which, I hope you wash that thing. Gross. So he sliced it and handed Percy a slice, then gave one to Mr. Bedbrook, and he plated one slice for himself as well. They all ate some cake. And George decided to also show them this new gelatin capsule that he'd recently discovered that would make medication easier to administer. I guess he's like starting up like small talk about this. This is why small talk is dangerous. Okay. So
that's the podcast, everybody. Thanks for listening.
He starts talking about this new discovery he found, and it's like, oh, this new capsule is so much easier to take. It's going to be so much easier for people to take medication. So he fills one of these with sugar that had been brought, earlier, and he gives it to Percy, and Percy readily takes it as a demonstration. Like, oh yeah, that is pretty easy to swallow because it's sugar, so whatever. So he swallows it down. He's like, oh, that is easy to take. Now, George suddenly decided he needed to catch a train back to Paris. Well, he was going to Paris so that he could get to Florence. He was going to go spend some time in Florence, he said.
Mm-hmm.
and left quickly after the pill was swallowed. Now, poor Percy started to complain of heartburn-like symptoms, then would later endure vomiting black fluid, severe abdominal pain, and convulsions. And he told others that his throat felt as if it were closing up and that his skin was drawing up. He died several hours after his symptoms began.
Wow.
Mr. Bedbrook turned over samples of the sherry, candies, and cake to police the next day, as suspicion over Percy's sudden illness and death grew. Now, a postmortem did suggest poison as the cause of death.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what poison do you think was found?
He's vomiting black fluid. Okay.
Severe abdominal pain.
Felt like his skin was drawing up.
Yeah, and that his throat was burning as if it were closing up. And at first he had heartburn symptoms, so it was like his chest was probably heavy.
Oh, does this have to do with cardiac glycosides? No.
No.
Okay.
Abdominal pain, vomiting, and the convulsions would speak to, say, some neuro issues.
Oh.
I'll give you a hint. Otherwise, he might have felt some tingling and numbness in his extremities.
Okay. Belladonna?
It's not belladonna.
Okay. Am I close?
You are. We talked about this one around the time because we talked about this one closer.
Lily ducks. I'm out of guesses.
Okay. Now I'll just carry on.
Okay.
George believed that the sugar-filled capsule he had Percy try would be what was looked at as suspicious. And since he himself had tried the sugar in front of the others in his sherry, he could escape being suspected. Mr. Bedbrook, however, remembered that the cake had been sliced by George Lamson himself. We are talking about Dr. George Lamson. You ever heard of him?
No.
Okay. Before being given out, it was also discovered that Lamson had purchased aconite recently by a London pharmacy. Mm-hmm. Aconite, also known as wolfsbane, monkshood.
Okay.
So this case is actually pretty famous. It's Dr. George Henry Lamson. This particular murder has also been called the sleight of hand murder.
Okay.
So Dr. Lamson was actually tried at the Old Bailey, and there are still some transcripts online that you can look at from like witnesses and people who knew them and stuff.
That's cool.
Yeah. And he was found guilty of Percy's murder. His motive was the inheritance that his wife and therefore he would receive, which would have been about £3,000 at that time.
Truckload of money at that moment.
Right. And remember, he was in debt and he had, he still had this addiction going on. Now, he was sentenced to death and hanged on April 28th, 1882. And it turns out that he had put an aconite-laced raisin in the fruitcake slice that he had given to Percy. But his and the headmaster's slice was not poisoned. That's why they could eat it in Percy.
So he knew exactly where that raisin was.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he also believed that aconite could not be traced, but it turns out that forensics had improved since his student days when he was first taught that.
Well.
So, but that is the case of Dr. George Henry Lamson.
Aconite, huh?
Aconite.
Okay.
Let's see. I'm trying to see if this one's going to be a little bit easier on you. Well, let's just find out.
Okay.
We are going to be talking about, well, I think I can give you the actual name of this lady because I don't think you've ever heard of her before.
Okay.
Otylia Klimek.
Absolutely not.
I hope I'm saying that right. She's Polish. She was called Tilly. She was born Otylia Burek, I think. I could be wrong. There's a G in front of the B. I'm assuming it's silent, but I don't know anything about Polish, so I'm sorry.
The Eastern European countries tend to scatter consonants willy-nilly.
No, but like I've been trying to study like Scottish Gaelic, and like usually like if there's a BH, it's like a V sound.
Oh wow.
In some cases.
Okay.
So I'm trying I don't know if that's similar to some of these other languages though. So she was born in Poland in 1876 before immigrating with her parents to Chicago in America. She married her first husband. Wow.
Sounds like she married her first Hussein
It sounds like I was trying to say cousin and husband at the same time, and there's no cousins in this really. Well, there is a cousin.
She married her first hustler.
There is a cousin, but the cousin wasn't the husband. So she married.
If the cousin wasn't cousin, was he?
So she married her first husband, Joseph Mitkowitz.
Mankiewicz.
There's no A in it.
What? How's it spelled?
It's spelled Mitkiewiczz.
Mankiewicz.
Mitkowitz. That's what I said.
Oh, right.
Joseph Mitkowitz, when she was 19 in 1895. That lasted until 1914, when Joseph became ill. He would be dealing with abdominal pain, vomiting, diarrhea, and headaches. It would progress to tingling and numbness in the extremities. He would die soon after he became ill, and his death was listed as heart trouble. Now, Tilly had this reputation for being psychic or for having precognitive dreams foretelling the deaths of those around her, which is a red flag. Come on.
Massive red flag.
Red flag.
I thought it was a carnival.
Oh, my God. One source I read said that just before Joseph's death, she told a neighbor that she had had a dream that her husband was going to die on a specific date.
Mm-hmm.
That happened to be the date that Joseph died.
Well,
shocker.
Thou art a prophet or a murderer.
She collected about $1,000 in life insurance after his death.
Mm-hmm.
Tilly moved on rather quickly and married Joseph Ruskowski a few months later. He died after a similar illness suddenly overtook him, involving abdominal pains, vomiting, and diarrhea. This time she collected $1,200 in cash and $722 in life insurance. She apparently knew the day he would die as well.
Wow.
Tilly later had a boyfriend named John Guskowski who had angered her somehow. She apparently warned him that she had killed other men before him, and he threatened to go to police.
Okay.
So he got sick and died too.
Oh, no way.
No. I bet she predicted that one too. Now, moving on, she later married husband number 3.
Is this lady moving around, like moving cities?
No, she's still in Chicago. Yeah. Frank Kupczyk. I could be saying that wrong. It's an interesting last name. Kupczyk. In 1919, she was also known for her cooking, and after eating some stew, he became ill with some familiar symptoms. It was recorded that a woman living in the same building stated she would sit next to him while he suffered, making a hat that she told him she'd be sure to wear at his funeral. Nice.
Okay.
Charming. She also bought a $30 coffin at a bargain sale and apparently boasted about getting it so cheap in front of her dying husband, like waving it in his face. Like, look at this bargain I got. It's going to be great. I'm just going to store it,
This lady.
Another witness said she would put on jazz records and sing along while he suffered before his death, just hanging out.
Oh my God.
Husband number 4 was Joseph Klimek, who she met at...
Another Joe?
Yeah, there's quite a few Joes.
Another Joe.
What are Joes?
Okay.
Who she met at husband number 3's funeral.
Are you serious, dude? Come on.
Now, he was reportedly urged to keep away from her as she was unlucky. In 1921, Joseph became ill, but when he started experiencing numbness in his extremities, his brother urged him to go to the hospital. Based on what I've told you about the symptoms, what do you think the poison could be?
Well, you mentioned cardiac earlier, so it makes me think of foxglove.
Not foxglove.
No?
Remember, he's having numbness in the extremities. Abdominal pain.
Hang on.
Are you cheating?
No.
And now a lot of these poisons can sound kind of alike. That's why we have some, so many like tests and stuff to figure out. But I just wanted to see if you could take a guess as to what the poison was. Remember, this is the early 1900s. What was pretty popular in the early 1900s to use as a poison?
Arsenic. Yeah.
The observant doctor there decided to test him for arsenic, and Joseph would stay in the hospital for 3 months. He lived, but his legs remained paralyzed afterwards.
Dude.
Tilly was arrested for attempted murder of her husband on October 26th, 1922, and I'm sure those who believed she was psychic began to realize the truth. She insisted she was innocent for a while, but finally confessed, saying that she got the arsenic from her cousin. Here's the cousin / neighbor, Nellie Kulik. Nellie Kulik. So it's got Tilly and Nellie.
Mm-hmm.
They arrested Nellie the next day to question her. Suddenly, police were getting letters from the women's friends and family members informing them of other suspicious deaths they had noticed.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
oh, things are starting to add up. So Tilly's first 2 husbands were exhumed, and arsenic was found in their bodies, proving they had been poisoned.
Oh, my God.
And the body of Frank, husband number 3, was also exhumed, and they found enough arsenic in that dude to kill 4 dudes. That's the guy she was like, look, I got a bargain coffin just for you,
Dude.
and I'm going to wear this hat.
Was she charged with all of these murders?
I think she was only, well, we'll get there.
Okay.
She wasn't charged with all of them, and I'm thinking it's because they really just wanted to put her away and make sure that they could get her for the charge they had enough evidence for. So, also, Nellie probably wasn't just providing the arsenic, as there had been some mysterious deaths under her care as well. In November of 1922, the Chicago Tribune apparently published a list of 20 possible victims between the 2 women. Like, they don't know for sure, but it's
How
like
many?
a prospective list. 20.
Oh.
And also there was a dog.
Okay.
It was like a neighbor's dog that wouldn't be quiet, so they think she might have done the same.
That's sinister, bro.
I know. Leave the dogs out of it, okay?
Exactly.
I mean, don't kill people either, but
well, yeah, but
I will John Wick you if I see you hurt an animal.
yeah.
Okay. Now, this list would have included Tilly's cousin, Rose Chudzinski, who died in 1919 after an argument with Tilly. Apparently, she didn't believe that she was psychic.
Well, that's one way to do it.
3 more cousins who were sisters between the ages of 15 to 23. Tilly had an argument with their mother. And some relatives survived after a brief illness after eating at Tilly's house. Like, they would get sick, but they lived.
Mm.
While there is evidence that Nellie had killed as well, Tilly was treated somewhat differently, especially in the media, and it is speculated that it is because while Nellie was pretty and more friendly and ladylike, Tilly was described using such words as lumpy and dull. Like, thanks.
Okay.
One reporter even said Tilly went to the penitentiary because she had never gone to the beauty parlor.
Yikes.
Apparently, you got more mercy for being pretty, like pretty privilege.
Wow.
Pretty much, right?
Pretty much. Get it?
Hey, yeah, I didn't actually think about that. Anyway. So, and pretty privilege is still a thing. I'm guessing even more so in that era, especially since she was actually, when she was tried, the jury was all men. It doesn't really seem like peers to me, but okay.
No.
So, yeah. It is noted that Nellie's husband, who had died in 1919, also had arsenic in his body. This is the cousin, when they checked. Nellie's daughters died a year before he did, and her granddaughter also died while she was caring for her.
Oh, God.
But Tilly was the one they focused on the most. Well, yeah.
That's so awful.
Now, they were tried separately, and Tilly's trial was described as a circus, basically. Like, she enjoyed making the onlookers laugh. The judge basically had to tell them that they were there for serious matters quite a few times.
Okay.
One report I read stated that she gave a last prophecy that she would not be sentenced to death, which actually came true, because Tilly was found guilty on the charges of attempted murder of her most recent husband, Joseph Klimek, and the murder of her 3rd husband, Frank, who I guess had the most arsenic in his body, so maybe that was like, the easiest one to get her on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the jury was all male, and she was sentenced to life in prison, the first woman in Cook County to have such a sentence.
So, but this feels like the beginning of like forensic evidence leading to a conviction.
Well, I mean, they've been able to test for arsenic at this point.
Okay.
They exhumed but see, like, special exhumations for a time were considered pretty rash and like just ghastly, right? Like, oh, why would you do such a thing?
It's a little grotesque.
Yeah. I mean, but like when it comes down to the science of it, it's just a body that you can test for things, right? So, but back then there's more of this sort of more sentiment attached, more spiritual stuff attached to it. So
yeah.
And even now, I think with certain cultures, there's still spiritual stuff attached to. In certain cultures, there's still, when it comes to the dead. So, but at this time, like, it would have been seen as something not, they weren't so keen on doing it. Now, so she was sentenced to life in prison and she went to Joliet Penitentiary. Nellie was acquitted, even though her children testified against her.
Bruh. What?
Which makes you think, like, was she acquitted because she was just pretty and sweet and ladylike and friendly? Tilly died in the Joliet Penitentiary in 1936. But she would also play pranks on Nellie. She would basically tell Nellie, yeah, they're about to take me to get hanged. I'm about to get hanged. And she wasn't. Like, she would just mess with her. So that was her personality. So yeah, that was that. Arsenic.
Yikes.
We're going to talk about one more case.
Mm-hmm.
This one is a little more recent than the other two. This one occurred in Beijing, China in 1994. And we're going to talk about Zhu Ling is her name. Ling attended Tsinghua University, which is an Ivy League Chinese school. It has a 0.4 domestic acceptance rate. So that means it's
0.4%?
Yeah.
Yo.
That means it's harder to get into than Harvard. If you're
That's less than one per
person living
applications. There. Wow.
So she was very bright.
Mm-hmm.
She was a sophomore majoring in physical chemistry, and she was very intelligent, very put together. She also had a great interest in music and was involved in the orchestra there.
Mm-hmm.
She suddenly starts missing classes or showing up late, which is very unlike her. She's having stomach pains and feeling ill.
Uh-oh.
And she and others think it's just stress. Now I'm going to go through a timeline a little bit here. Okay, letting you know because there's a lot that happens. So November 24th, 1994, Ling starts having abdominal pain and her appetite isn't so great. December 5th of that same year, she is still having stomach pains and now her hair is falling out in clumps.
Mm-hmm.
December 11th, she is still ill, but pushes through to perform a solo on the guqin for the orchestra. The guqin is this 7-string Chinese instrument that's plucked. It's been used since ancient times and is very highly respected.
Mm-hmm.
It's been known as the instrument of the sages, apparently.
Okay.
Now, during this performance, she wore glasses because her vision had been going bad and her eyes hurt.
Okay.
She lost all of her hair soon after the performance. On December 23rd, 1994, she was hospitalized at Beijing Tongren Hospital with these symptoms, and she seemed to improve enough to be released January 23rd of 1995 and was told that she could return to school at that point. So she was hospitalized for like a month, right?
Wow.
The new semester started February 20th, and by the 27th, Ling was experiencing severe leg pain, weakness, and dizziness, and her parents took her to Peking University Third Hospital. Her condition continued to deteriorate, and she was taken to a neurologist specialist clinic, where her condition was described as, and this is quotes, the patient is mentally clear and articulate, experiencing significant hair loss, limbs hurt by touching, redness at the fingertips and soles, which are not swollen but with elevated temperature, reduced sensation in the fingertips and below the knees, symmetric knee reflex, ankle reflex is slow. It was also noted that she had obvious Mies lines on her fingernails. March 15th, 1995, Ling was admitted to the neurology ward of PUMCH, this is at Peking University, with the complaints of hair loss, joint and muscle pain, and abdominal pain for the last 3 months. Her shoulders and knees were especially sore, as well as the distal ends of both lower limbs. At one point, the diagnosis was peripheral neuropathy. Basically, they didn't know where this pain was coming from, and they were trying to put a title on it. They did a lumbar puncture, which showed normal results. Autoimmune and metabolic diseases were ruled out. They even tested for things like HIV and all kinds of stuff. There was no cancer. All of that was ruled out. So they started treating her for Guillain-Barré syndrome based on symptoms.
Okay, that's fair.
Just based on symptoms. They're not calling it that, but they're treating it that way.
And I'm just in case the listener doesn't know, Becca's an RN. I'm a physical therapist, so that's why I say, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Guillain-Barré is a condition. Its symptoms basically start with you losing sensation and you get paralysis in the distal parts of your hands and feet, and it moves up and up and up and up.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times people have to go on a ventilator until it just suddenly reverses itself.
Mm-hmm.
It's a weird
situation. Very strange.
It's very strange. And there are some who have it more severe than others, some who don't have it as severe, but that's the basics of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Her condition continued to deteriorate, and even her facial muscles were starting to spasm and distort. She couldn't speak, she would choke easily, and she was having trouble breathing. They were giving her antibiotics, antivirals, steroids, all kinds of stuff, trying to figure out what the heck's going on. So Ling fell into a coma on March 20th. March 23rd, Ling went into respiratory failure and a tracheotomy was performed. The diagnosis was changed this time to acute disseminated encephalomyelitis. Fun.
Yeah.
And plasma exchange therapy was started the next day. She went through 7 rounds of plasma exchange therapy, which might have helped sustain her life at the time, but it also led to her contracting hepatitis C.
Oh my God. Was it contaminated?
I'm guessing.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah. Which is actually, it's very rare. At least I know in America it's very rare. I don't know what the statistics are in other countries for that to happen because of the screening and stuff.
Okay.
March 28th, Ling was moved to the ICU and placed on mechanical ventilation after a pneumothorax of the left lung. April 3rd, 1995, medical experts in the region met to discuss Ling's condition and possible treatment ideas, but it was everyone's opinion that the course being taken was the right one. Ling's friends, including Bei Zhucheng, were confused and frustrated at how their once thriving and intelligent friend had come to such a state. So April 10th, they decided to try asking online if anyone could help identify her symptoms, and they received hundreds of responses.
Oh, that's crazy.
So what do you...
Who put that out online? Her friends? Or?
Yeah, her friends.
Wow. So
what do you think Ling was suffering from?
Is this mercury poisoning?
It's not mercury, but you're really close.
Is it thallium?
It's thallium. And we're going to talk about it.
Sinister.
The biggest clue is the hair falling out.
Yeah, and I remember the Mies lines on the nail beds. I knew that was characteristic.
Well, sometimes you see lines, you see lines with heavy metals, typically, but the biggest clue was the hair falling out for sure.
Ah, okay. She had joint pain, but not pathological fracture. I guess maybe I was waiting to hear that she'd actually broken a bone or something, but I don't know.
So 68% of the responses said they believed that it was heavy metal poisoning, and 50% of those specifically stated it was thallium poisoning. Going further, Dr. Li Xin, a Chinese student at UCLA here in America, and Dr. John W. Aldis at the U.S. Embassy in Beijing came together to make a telehealth network based on Ling's case. So this is in the 1990s. Where I feel like the internet's still relatively new, and at least it was to us. But they were able to sort of put this whole network together, which is pretty cool. So this online network would allow them to upload Ling's medical information as well as emails between professionals and her contacts, like friends, family, people who are witnessing her health decline, so that medical experts worldwide could access the information, ask for more details if needed, and provide a possible diagnosis or treatment suggestions. And this became critical to the final diagnosis. This is like the first time this has ever happened where people were able to sort of create this network, come together, where other health professionals were able to comment and be like, that's what this is.
Absolutely. That's powerful.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's funny because you look at TikTok these days and you'll see people on TikTok being like, can someone, I don't have the money to go to a doctor. Is there anybody can tell me what this might be?
Dude, that is nuts.
I'm not saying don't ever go to your doctor again and just get diagnosed on TikTok. I'm not saying that.
Medical advice is valid.
But, getting advice there or somebody who can help you be like, hey, I had this too, and this was what was going on. Go see this kind of professional.
Right. It's the exchange of information is lightning fast. Yes. You literally hopscotch over any prohibitive obstacle in the actual healthcare system, which, sometimes can be very frustrating.
It can also be damaging because there are a lot of people on TikTok too, where they're just trying to sell you stuff.
Just because it's the lightning fast exchange of information that is not curated with expertise. That is
now
the
there
caveat.
there are doctors on TikTok who do lives and they kind of answer questions and stuff, and it's very helpful too. But
it is.
definitely, while you shouldn't be diagnosing yourself based on TikTok, it's definitely helpful to listen to advice of other people who may have gone through the same thing, or doctors telling you to talk about this with your doctor. That kind of thing.
It can be helpful.
Yeah.
But please maintain a decent relationship and frequency with your primary doctor. We said, Your Honor.
Yeah. And that, honestly, it's a privilege to be able to do that.
Well, of course.
And it sucks that that's the case.
As somebody who has access to healthcare.
It sucks that that's the case. It shouldn't be that way.
Of course.
In my opinion,
of course,
everybody should be able to get
the help they need.
what they need.
That's right.
But here we are.
Thallium, bro.
Thallium.
Crazy.
Now, during the first consult with the neurology specialist before her second hospitalization, remember they took her to this specialist clinic?
Yeah.
Heavy metal poisoning was discussed, including thallium. But because Ling said that she had no contact with thallium, knowingly, they neglected to test her for that poison.
She's being poisoned by someone.
She would later be tested for arsenic poisoning, with the hospital continuously saying that thallium had to be ruled out. The hospital went so far as to say that they had conducted all tests for heavy metal poisons, which was not true, because they had actually not performed a thallium test.
That's a massive mess up.
American doctors discovered that only testing for arsenic had been done because they could see her information at this point.
Yikes, man.
And urged the hospital to test for thallium. Even Ling's friend, Bei, who had helped set up this network, who had reached out and asked, what's going on with my friend here.
Mm-hmm.
Even he brought translated emails urging for the testing of thallium, but he was dismissed with, "We have the ability to consult international medical databases." That was their answer to that.
Yikes.
So the family finally found a doctor who would perform the test for thallium, and they secretly got one of the doctors at the hospital she was at to help them provide samples of hair, nails, urine, blood, and cerebrospinal fluid to the Beijing Institute of Labor Protection. They were able to get a doctor there that would test for it.
Oh.
There it was found that all specimens contained very high levels of thallium.
Oh my God.
And a report was issued stating that Ling had been poisoned twice intentionally, and that treatment of Prussian blue was advised. However, the hospital she was in still did not want to listen and they wanted to give Ling dimercaprol.
Are they in on this?
What's
going on?
Hang on. Which actually would have put her into renal failure if they had, could have at least.
She's intubated at the moment, right? She has a tracheostomy.
A lot of tubes coming out.
Holy.
She's. After numerous attempts at communication from multiple medical experts around the world, they finally started treatment with Prussian blue, May 3rd of 1995. In less than 24 hours, the levels of thallium in Ling's body began to decline, and it was altogether gone within 11 days.
Oh my God.
She awoke from her coma August 31st, 1995. That would be after 5 months of being in a coma.
What?
While she did recover some movement and memory, she would have paralysis in both legs, optic nerve damage, intellectual impairment, and widespread muscle atrophy due to how long she was ill.
That's so terrible.
So, to the investigation. As soon as the diagnosis for thallium was affirmed, Ling's family urged the school that she was at to report the incident and to seal Ling's dorm, where she had stayed with 3 other students, to preserve evidence and all that. While the higher-ups of the university were informed, it was still not reported to the actual police.
What?
Between late May and early April, there was a theft in the dorm room, and some of Ling's personal items like lipstick, body wash, contact lens case, shampoo, and a water cup were taken. So the university began urging the family to withdraw Ling from school, but the family disagreed. The rest of her belongings were moved to the chemistry department somewhere where more of her things were later stolen. At this point, it could have been anybody.
Yeah, she's being targeted by someone.
So the main suspect in the case actually became one of Ling's roommates. Her name was Sun Wei.
Wait. You mean one of her roommates became one of the prime suspects? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, sorry, I mean, like, yeah, one of the suspects
It made it sound
was.
like
I'm sorry.
she was like, listen, they suspect me of killing you, so why don't we start living together?
Yeah, sorry, I wrote that funny. Anyway, the university had claimed that.
Bygones be bygones. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, why not? The university had claimed that no undergraduate students could have had the ability to obtain thallium, but it was later discovered that there were receipts for the purchase of thallium from Sunway's school research group. She claims she is innocent, however, and that more people than her had access to thallium, and that there was no personal animosity between her and Ling. However, as someone who was close to Ling, she has been the one to have the most opportunity and means. Still, there's not enough evidence to charge her with anything at this time. So it could have been her. She's the most likely suspect, but
Because she's a roommate and
she has the means and opportunity and all that. But did she do it?
motive.
Motive could have been anything from jealousy to, I don't know.
That's
We just
so
don't know. We just don't
intense,
know.
bro.
So maybe she did it. Maybe she didn't. But it's highly suspected that she could have.
She let that girl lay in the bed while doctors around the world were trying to.
So
Oh, man.
It has also been speculated that Sunway has been able to evade justice because of her family in high places. This is just speculation.
Who's her family?
Her grandfather was a high-ranking government official at one time. Her father's cousin was vice president of China's top political advisory body, and Sunway's mother worked at the hospital where Ling was at.
This is conspiracy, dude.
Where at one point they told the family, this hospital, that they could not perform a test for thallium. So I'm not saying she said that, but the hospital did at one point.
Yeah, but that's so shady. Like, come on. Toxic poisoning is basic medical education. I'm sorry.
Anyway. So Sunway was interrogated for about 8 hours in 1997 and signed a document acknowledging that she was a suspect, but again has not been charged with anything. Like I said, there's not enough evidence. There was an online White House petition at whitehouse.gov in 2013 that demanded investigation of the suspect who had moved here and changed her name to Sun Xian.
She changed her name,
That's how you say that?
dude?
And she also changed her birthday. Probably so she could, like, move over here. I don't know.
What, dude?
Yeah.
Who?
It's just a little, it's strange, but.
Well, who put together the petition to investigate her?
I'm not sure who put it together, but the petition did reach 100,000 signatures in 3 days.
What?
But the White House declined to comment much on the matter, so it wasn't looked into.
Yeah.
They were just like, yeah, it's not really our business. In 2023, some Chinese Australians petitioned the Australian Parliament to expel Jasmine's son. She had changed her name again upon moving there. However, it has been agreed that there is no legal basis to deport her, and she still lives in New South Wales as a real estate investor.
Investor?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the story with Sunway.
That is so crooked.
Now, Ling never fully recovered from the effects and basically was left with the mental capacity of a 6-year-old and was practically blind.
Mm-hmm.
Her health slowly degraded, and she died December of 2023 at the age of 50 after experiencing symptoms of a brain tumor. So she died about 28 years after being poisoned. But thallium.
I think about the fact that the people who cared about the victim reached out internationally.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, they believe
those are some friends.
What's that?
Those are some friends.
Oh, absolutely. But they did not feel like they could appeal to someone in their own country.
Well, the hospital wasn't listening.
No, they weren't. But it was conspicuous.
Yeah.
It was like, what if, because it hits me weird. Like, what do you mean you can't test for thallium?
Well, at one point, they were trying to say that, no, we've already ruled out thallium, even though they hadn't.
That's so weird, dude.
Either they were legitimately trying to keep thallium off the table, or they thought it had already been tested for when it hadn't. But a quick look in the stuff, the documents and stuff.
And why would you have that? I'm assuming this correspondence occurred over email. Like, why would you make that statement but not be sure? Unless you're just trying to cover it up.
Well, even the American,
you look like a fool.
I mean, the American doctors were like, thallium hasn't been tested for. We can see it in the documentation. So test for it.
Oh man.
And I mean, even if you think it's been tested for and the symptoms still match, test again.
Of course, just for due diligence. But at the same, like, again, I keep coming back to the fact that they reached out outside of their own nation. They felt like
No one was listening to them.
Exactly. We will not find help in domestically. We must reach out internationally.
Well, and they're not the only ones to have done that. I mean, there's been people in other countries who've done the same thing. It's just, it's getting opinions from other people who may have had experience with this that may have more answers.
And also medical expertise, yeah. But like I'm just thinking, and I'm putting on my tinfoil hat, like we have to get around the Chinese government. We have to get around the socio-political structure of our nation, because there are people who are fighting against us.
I really don't know that much about the government over there, so I don't know.
Right. Anyway, that's intense.
Yeah. Did you like that little pop
That was
quiz?
fantastic. I really enjoyed that.
Okay. I know the first two symptom-wise seemed a little similar, so I was trying to like give you hints here and there.
Sure,
But
I appreciate that.
But yeah, I thought that was fun. But I am going to talk about some different poisons that we haven't talked about next week.
Okay.
So get ready.
All right. New poisons?
Yeah.
What's up? All right. I'm excited. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to leave a 5-star review on whatever platform you're listening on. That helps push the podcast out to new listeners who will enjoy the podcast just like you. And we will see you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye for now.